I always thought my neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happens unless Karen decides she's bored. And unfortunately, Karen was bored a lot. If you don't know her, imagine someone who believes an HOA badge from 1997 gives her the same authority as the FBI. That's Karen. Loud voice, louder perfume, and a personality that hits you like a brick. That morning, I was sipping my coffee, watching the light crawl over my lawn. Everything felt normal until I saw her. Karen strutted down the sidewalk like a marching band of one, shoulders stiff, chin up, wearing an expression that told me she was about to cause a national incident at a local level. But what really caught my eye was the shiny metal key she held in her hand. She wasn't just walking. She was gripping that key like it was a weapon. I leaned closer to the window. She stopped directly in front of my house, looked around dramatically, then raised the key as if she were summoning sunlight with it. I could almost hear an imaginary choir singing in her head. "Oh no," I whispered, "not again." Karen marched straight to my porch. No knocking, no calling my name. She just walked up to my front door and studied the lock like a detective. Then she shoved the key into it. Except it didn't go in. She twisted it. She shook it. She whispered something under her breath that sounded like she was trying to cast a spell. The key still refused. I watched her from behind the blinds, fighting the urge to laugh. She kept muttering things like, "Why won't it comply? And these homeowners think they're clever." Her face twisted like she was tackling a world crisis. Then she stepped back, glaring at my door like it had personally betrayed her. That's when she tried again, harder this time. She jammed the key in and wiggled it so aggressively I thought she'd break my doorknob. I had seen enough. If she damaged that lock, I'd have to replace the whole thing, and I wasn't about to spend my weekend doing that. I opened the door. She screamed. She screamed like I had jumped out wearing a werewolf costume. "Oh my God, why would you open it like that?" she shrieked, pressing a hand to her chest like she was about to faint. I stared at her, speechless. "Karen, you're trying to unlock my door. Why are you trying to unlock my door?" She straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and tried to regain whatever dignity she had left. "I was performing an HOA safety inspection," she declared. "I needed to ensure your property meets interior compliance standards." I blinked. "Interior, you were trying to come inside my house." "It's standard protocol," she said, waving the key like it proved something. "Every HOA president receives a master key for emergencies." I leaned against the doorway. "Karen, that key doesn't even fit." Her eyes narrowed. She glanced at the key, twisted her lips, and tried to hide the fact that she'd been defeated by a stubborn lock. She pointed a finger at me. "You changed your locks without HOA approval. That is a violation." "I bought this house 10 years ago," I said. "You weren't even president then." She ignored me completely and took a step closer. "If you don't let me perform my inspection, I will be forced to call 911. That made me laugh. I couldn't help it. She thought she was threatening me. She genuinely believed she had the power to summon the police like some sort of suburban warlord. "Call them," I said calmly. She blinked. "I will. I absolutely will, and I will report your aggressive behavior and your refusal to comply with the HOA." I folded my arms. "Karen, you don't know who you're threatening." Her eyes flashed. "I know exactly who I'm threatening, a homeowner who refuses to obey the rules. I'll have officers at your door in minutes." She turned on her heel, stomped off the porch, and marched down my driveway like she was leading a parade. I stood there watching her leave, a slow smile forming on my face. She had no idea. No idea that the person she was threatening to call 911 on was the sheriff. She had no idea what storm she had just invited into her own life. And the funniest part, this wasn't even close to the chaos she was about to start. The next morning, I opened my front door and froze. My porch looked like the bulletin board in a middle school hallway after Spirit Week exploded. Papers were taped everywhere. My door, my railing, even my mailbox. At first, I thought some kids had played a prank, but then I saw the letters at the top of each page. HOA notice. HOA violation. Urgent HOA warning. Karen had struck back. I peeled the first one off the door. It said my mailbox was too rectangular. I stared at it, wondering how a shape could offend someone. The next notice said my fence was too tall for emotional comfort. The one after that said my driveway had excessive personality. By the time I stepped back, I was holding at least 15 different fines, each one more ridiculous than the last. My coffee hadn't even kicked in yet, and I was already 3 seconds from laughing myself off the porch. I looked around the neighborhood. Everyone else's houses looked normal. No notices, no chaos, no weird fines. It was clearly targeted at only one person. Me. Karen wasn't just bored. She was declaring war. As I stood there trying to make sense of it, I heard rustling. I turned toward the side of my house, just in time to see something that made me question reality. Karen, on a ladders, peering over my backyard fence like a raccoon, trying to steal a pie. She was gripping a phone, whispering into it dramatically, "I'm documenting violations. There's definitely something wrong back here." I walked toward her slowly, quietly, almost curious to see how long she'd keep going. She didn't notice me until my shadow fell across the ladder. Her head popped up like a prairie dog, and she gasped so hard she nearly swallowed her own phone. What are you doing?" she demanded, wobbling on the ladder. "I should be asking you that." "I'm performing an aerial inspection," she yelled. "Ariel, you're 3 feet off the ground." She shot me a glare. Backyard violations are the worst kind. They hide behind fences like criminals. I sighed. "Karen, get off the ladder before you fall and sue gravity." But she wasn't listening. She snapped another picture, then another, muttering nonsense like, "Unapproved grass density and fence post suspiciously vertical." I'd had enough. Without a word, I walked over to the control panel on the side of the house and hit the button for the sprinklers. They fired to life. The water didn't just mist her. It blasted her like a pressure washer on full throttle. She screamed, lost her balance, and came tumbling off the ladder in slow motion. She landed in the grass with a dramatic splat, flailing like she'd been thrown from a helicopter. She scrambled to her feet, drenched, sputtering, pointing at me like she was nomming a murderer. "You assaulted me with water," she shrieked. "You were trespassing. This was important HOA business. You were taking pictures of my lawn. That's sensitive information." I couldn't hold back a laugh. She stomped away, dripping like a soggy cat, yelling something about filing an official report for hydration-based aggression. I thought she'd go home, calm down, maybe realize she was being ridiculous. But Karen wasn't wired like normal humans. She wasn't done. Later that evening, as the sun started dipping low, I heard something that made my stomach tighten. Talking, whispering, coming from right outside my living room window. I peeked out and saw Karen standing with 2 neighbors, acting like she was planning a military operation. "All right," she said in a low voice, "tonight is when we take action." One neighbor looked confused. "Action for what?" She held up a small ring of keys. "For the master key operation." My heart almost stopped. She wasn't just coming back. She was planning it. She twirled the keys like she was in a spy movie. "He thinks he can stop me, but I'll get in tonight. The HOA will not be disrespected." I had to bite my lip to keep myself from laughing. She thought she was breaking into some drug cartel's hideout, not a sheriff's house. But then I saw the fear in the neighbors' eyes. They didn't want trouble. They didn't want to be part of her scheme. But Karen didn't care. She was in full dictator mode now. Later, around midnight, she snuck onto my porch again. But this time, she wasn't alone. And she wasn't just holding one key. She had 3, and she was ready to use every one of them. The real chaos was just beginning. Midnight has a different kind of silence. It's the silence where even the crickets sound like they're scared to breathe. And that's the silence I felt when my security app pinged on my phone. Motion detected, front porch. I sat up instantly, the glow from my phone lighting the dark room. I tapped the live feed and there she was, Karen, wearing a black hoodie like she was auditioning for a heist movie. The hood was way too big for her head, so it kept sliding over her eyes, making her push it back every 5 seconds like a clumsy burglar. But she wasn't alone. Behind her were 2 HOA board members, terrified, confused, and whispering like they'd just realized they were participating in something highly illegal. Karen raised a finger to her lips dramatically, shushing them even though neither of them had spoken. She took a deep breath, pulled out a ring of keys, and held them up like they were holy artifacts. "This is it," she whispered. "The master key operation begins now." One board member whispered back, "Karen, those keys don't even match the brand of his door." She ignored him completely. I zoomed in on the camera. 3 keys, all different sizes, different colors, none of them even looked new. One key looked like it belonged to an old mailbox from the 80s. But Karen believed. Oh, she believed with her whole soul. She picked the biggest key and inserted it into my lock. It didn't go in, not even halfway. She twisted it anyway. It scraped. It screeched. It made a sound like a dying robot. She winced. "This lock has been tampered with," she whispered. "He must have sabotaged it." The board member shook his head. "Karen, you can't sabotage your own lock." "Don't tell me how locks work," she snapped. Then she pulled out the second key. Smaller, bent, rusty. If tetanus had a shape, it was that key. She shoved it in. It didn't fit either. She cursed under her breath. "Why is nothing cooperating? These locks are malfunctioning." From inside my dark living room, I whispered to myself, "Karen, your brain is malfunctioning." Then came the third key. Bright pink, sparkly, shaped like a heart. I swear I almost choked. It was a toy key. From a kid's diary set. Karen held that key with the reverence of a weapon. "This one always works," she whispered. She pushed it into the lock. It didn't even touch the metal. It hit the door frame and bent sideways instantly. Her eyes widened in betrayal. "The door is resisting me intentionally." Behind her, one of the board members whispered, "Karen, that's a toy." She snapped her head toward him. "It's a limited edition security key." That's when it happened. Her foot caught the edge of my porch mat, and the universe decided to entertain me. Karen tripped forward, but not in a normal way. She tripped like she had rehearsed the fall for a school play. She spun, flailed, grabbed the air, grabbed a board member, missed everything, and then, crash, she landed backward into my rose bushes. If the night had been silent before, it wasn't now. Her scream echoed across the whole street. Not a short scream, not a startled one. A long, dramatic, theatrical one, like someone had stabbed her with a violin bow. The 2 board members panicked. "Oh my God. Should we call someone?" "She's bleeding." "No, wait, that's just petals." Karen shot up, thorns tangled in her hair, looking like she had been attacked by a floral monster. "This is his fault," she roared, pointing directly at my door. "He set a trap." I stepped outside slowly, letting the porch light hit her. She froze. "You again," she gasped. "Karen," I said calmly, "why are you trying to break into my house at midnight with a toy key?" She pointed at me with shaking hands. "This is an official HOA mission. You're obstructing HOA justice." One of the board members whispered, "Karen, please, let's just go home." She wasn't listening. She was trembling with frustration, humiliation, and thorns stuck in her sweater. Then she did the unthinkable. She grabbed her phone, dialed 911. "Put it on speaker." "I'd like to report a dangerous homeowner refusing an inspection," she yelled. My phone buzzed instantly. It was dispatch. Calling me. I picked up. I listened. And then I looked straight into Karen's eyes as the dispatcher said, "Sheriff, Karen is reporting you again." Her face went pale. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Because for the first time, she realized who she was dealing with. I woke up before the sun the next morning, not because I had to, but because I felt it. That HOA disturbance in the force. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. 6 missed calls from neighbors, 3 texts from Officer Daniels, and 1 message from my deputy marked urgent. I sat up instantly. When a cop labels something urgent at 5:30 a.m., it's never about a cat stuck in a tree. Before I could even slide my boots on, my radio crackled. "Sheriff, you're gonna wanna come to Maple Ridge Gate. Karen's here." The pause was dramatic. And she brought equipment. Equipment. My heartbeat instantly shifted into sheriff mode. I drove out, still half buttoning my shirt, and I didn't even make it past the entrance road before I saw it. Karen had set up an entire command post. Not a small one. Not a reasonable one. A full tactical HOA checkpoint, like she was leading a siege on a medieval castle. She had cones. She had a folding table. She had a clipboard bigger than her entire personality. And she had 2 men in neon vests standing behind her like hired muscle. I parked and got out slowly. "Morning," I said. She didn't turn. She didn't blink. She just wrote something down dramatically on her oversized clipboard. Then she snapped her head at me. "You are late for your compliance check." Oh, so that's what this was. "Compliance check?" I asked. "Karen, it's 6 in the morning." She clapped her hands like a kindergarten teacher. "Exactly. HOA Rule 14B. Surprise inspections may be conducted at any time of day to maintain community standards." I stared at her. Even her goons looked confused. "Karen, I literally wrote that rule. It says reasonable hours. That means after sunrise, not before my coffee." She ignored me again and waved her hand dramatically. "Badge," she demanded. I blinked. "What?" "Your identification badge. HOA authorized personnel only pass this checkpoint." Something inside me clicked. Not anger. Not frustration. Just pure, perfect amusement. "Karen," I said calmly, "I live here." "Not without showing ID, you do." I looked behind me. A line of cars was already forming, neighbors on their way to work, watching this like it was a morning soap opera. A guy in a truck rolled down his window. "Hey, Sheriff, you need backup for this hostage negotiation." Karen snapped around at him. "Sir, remain in your vehicle or you will be fined." The truck driver laughed so loudly, even the squirrels got offended. I turned back toward her. "Karen, let me through." "No, not until you present your badge." I reached slowly toward my wallet. Her eyes sparkled, like she truly thought she'd beaten me this time. "Oh," she said smugly, finally deciding to follow HOA rules. I took out my badge. Not my HOA badge. Not some laminated ID card. My sheriff badge. I held it up casually. Her face froze like someone had unplugged her brain. One of her goons whispered, Ma'am, that's a real badge." Karen squinted at it. Then squinted harder. Then leaned in. Then jumped back as if it burned her. "That's fake," she blurted. "HOA badges do not look like that." I swear my soul left my body for a second. "Karen," I said slowly, "read the engraving." She did. Her lips moved. Her throat bobbed. Her hands shook. And then her eyes shot up at me like I had revealed I was the King of England. You're the actual sheriff." A neighbor behind me yelled. Karen, you've been bossing around the literal sheriff for 2 months. Someone honked. Someone else clapped. The HOA goons awkwardly stepped back like they were trying to fade into another dimension. Karen's eyes darted left and right, like she was preparing her escape route. Then she gasped dramatically and pointed over my shoulder. Look, a violation. Everyone turned. There was nothing. Not even a leaf moving. When we looked back, Karen was sprinting across the grass like an Olympic athlete, clipboard flapping, hair bouncing, high heels stabbing the earth. One of her goons sighed. She does that a lot. I crossed my arms. She's staging HOA checkpoints at 6 a.m. That's harassment, obstruction, and about 12 violations of the county code. He cleared his throat. So are we arrested? I shrugged. Were you forced to participate? Ma'am has no authority over me, one said proudly. Yes, she does, the other whispered. She's my mom. The first goon's jaw dropped. Oh, bro, that's rough. I pinched my nose. Look, fellas, I'm not arresting you. But Karen, she's running out of rope. And then, right then, my phone buzzed. It was Officer Daniels. He texted, "Call me ASAP." Karen just tried her master key trick again. But this time she picked the wrong house. I stared at that message. My heartbeat slowed. My stomach tightened. This wasn't funny anymore. Something was about to go very, very wrong. Get in, I told the goons. We're going to Mapleview, and we're going fast. Part 5 was already forming in my mind, and it wasn't pretty. I didn't even finish reading the text before I threw the truck into gear. Daniels never used the phrase, "she picked the wrong house," unless something serious was unfolding, something that could blow up fast. Beside me sat Karen's 2 HOA soldiers, both looking nervous like kids who got caught sneaking out past curfew. One of them, the one who wasn't her son, kept glancing at the radio like it might explode. "What does wrong house mean?" he asked. I pressed harder on the gas. It means Karen tried another one of her famous ambush inspections and walked into a place she really shouldn't have. His eyes went wide. Like criminals. Worse, I muttered, people who don't like being surprised. As I turned onto Mapleview Lane, I didn't even have to guess where the chaos was. I could see it. A crowd was gathering. Neighbors whispering. Someone filming from their porch. And right in front of house number 81, a big cedar-trimmed place with a huge American flag, was Karen. Hands on hips. Veins in her neck visible. Face red like a kettle ready to blow. She was yelling at a tall, stone-faced man standing on the porch, arms crossed. And behind him, a woman. Not just any woman. A woman who looked like she probably hadn't slept in 48 hours, holding a baby that definitely hadn't slept in 48 hours either. The baby screamed loud enough to rattle windows. And I swear, Karen looked annoyed at the baby. That was my first clue this would get bad. I stepped out of the truck before it even stopped rolling. "Karen," I shouted, "back away from that door." She spun around, eyes wild. "There you are, finally. I need enforcement. These people are violating HOA regulations and refusing to comply." I approached slowly. "What violation?" She huffed dramatically, lifting her clipboard like it weighed 10 pounds. "They installed a new doorbell without submitting the Form 12B. A neighbor gasped sarcastically. "Oh, the horrors." Karen whipped around at him. "Sir, this is serious." But I wasn't focused on her. I was focused on the couple. The husband's jaw was clenched so hard, I could see the muscles twitching. The wife held their crying baby tighter, trying to soothe him, but she looked exhausted. Eyes red, hair messy, body sagging like she'd been holding everything together for far too long. "Ma'am," I said gently, "are you okay?" Her lip trembled. She barged in," she whispered. "Said she had a master key, pushed past me, woke the baby." I closed my eyes for 1/2 second. Yep, there it was. The thing Daniels warned me about. Corinne's master key. The try-all doors, jiggle-every-handle trick she used to intimidate people. Except this time, she picked the home of a veteran. I knew the husband, Staff Sergeant Miller. Just retired. PTSD diagnosis. Protective as a guard dog and twice as intense. A baby. A sleep-deprived mother. A stressed veteran. And Corinne pushing her way in. This could have become a disaster. "Corinne," I said carefully, "did you enter their home without consent?" "No," she shrieked. "Well, the door opened. Which means it wasn't fully secured. Which means I was performing a safety check." Staff Sergeant Miller stepped forward. The door opened because I was holding it when she tried to shove her way in. Corinne ignored him. "Plus," she continued, "I needed to verify the illegal doorbell. It chimes at 65 decibels. HOA limit is 60. I slowly rubbed my forehead. "You have no authority to force entry," I said. She jabbed her pen at me. "I have a master key." I took a deep breath. "Corinne, that key opens the pool bathroom. That's it. That's literally it. It is not a universal key. It does not open homes." "I am the HOA president," she screamed. "And I said, my voice lowering, "am the sheriff." Silence. A deep, thick, perfect silence. Neighbors held their breath. Even the baby paused, confused. Corinne's eyes narrowed at me like she was calculating her next move. "You're abusing your power," she hissed. "Corinne," I replied, "you entered private property without permission. That's trespassing, and waking a baby, that's cruelty to parents." Miller's wife let out a shaky laugh at that. A tired, grateful laugh. Corinne crossed her arms defiantly, like she was ready for round 2. "You can't arrest me," she said confidently. "I'm on the board." I stepped closer. "So am I whispered. Her mouth fell open. I'd never seen her so speechless. "You what?" she stuttered. No, you can't be." I didn't want to bring that up, but yes, county law requires a sheriff representative on residential boards. I volunteer for this one. Every neighbor let out a synchronized gasp. Corinne froze, eyes shaking, lips trembling like her entire fantasy of power was cracking apart 1 inch at a time. "Which means," I added softly, "I outrank you, on the board and outside it." Her knees wobbled like they might give out. That was when Daniels pulled up behind me, lights flashing softly. He leaned out his window. "Sheriff, we got another issue, urgent." I turned. "What now?" I asked. He swallowed. "Corinne's been sending letters, dozens of them, threatening ones. Someone finally reported it." In that second, I realized this wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was turning into a criminal case. And Corinne, she wasn't ready for what came next. The moment Daniel said threatening letters, something cold slid down my spine. Corinne was ridiculous, intrusive, loud, controlling. But threatening, that was a whole different level. "Show me," I said. Daniel stepped out and opened the passenger door of his cruiser, pulling out a thick folder, so thick it looked like a high school textbook. He slapped it into my hands. "She mailed these to at least 12 residents," he said quietly. "Some anonymous, some with her signature, all of them pretty intense." I opened the folder. The first letter wasn't just a warning. It was a threat dressed as HOA jargon. Fail to cooperate and face consequences. The board can remove any obstacle. I blinked. Remove any obstacle. Was she calling people obstacles now? I flipped through another. Your noncompliance is a security risk. We will enter if necessary. Then another's. A master key exists for a reason. Don't test me. I exhaled slowly. That one wasn't an idle threat. It matched exactly what she tried with the Millers. I looked at Daniels, then at Karen. She stood there still in the street, arms crossed, chin tilted high like a villain in a budget drama series, except her eyes weren't confident. They were twitching, shaking, panicking. She knew. She knew those letters had finally caught up to her. Karen, I said, we need to talk. She scoffed. No, you need to talk to your supervisor because I'm filing complaints, big ones. Karen, I repeated, these letters are serious. She straightened her back. Good, they weren't supposed to be funny. I handed the stack to her. She didn't take it. Her fingers curled in toward her palm like she was afraid touching the papers would burn her. Did you write these? I asked. She swallowed hard but held her ground. HOA presidents must take enforcement seriously. That's not what I asked. She finally snatched the papers, flipped through them, stopped, and glared at me. These residents were out of line, she said. I had to push them, they do listen. That's not pushing, I said softly. That's intimidation. She flinched. And forcibly entering homes, I continued. Do you understand that's a crime? Her voice cracked, thin and brittle. I didn't enter, I inspected. The baby disagrees, Miller muttered from behind me. Karen pointed at him with a shaking hand. I am trying to fix this community. I am the only one who cares. A murmur rippled through the neighbors. Someone whispered, she's gone off the deep end. Someone else murmured, that poor woman needs help. Karen whipped around at the voices, eyes wild. Don't pity me, I am not the problem here, you all are. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stepped a little closer. Karen, what's going on? She froze. She wasn't expecting that question. Not an accusation. Not scolding. Just understanding. Her mouth quivered. But before she could answer, before she could drop the mask, a loud voice erupted from the end of the street. Sheriff, you're gonna want to see this. It was Deputy Harris, jogging toward us holding something in his hand. A small, metallic, rectangular object that glimmered in the sun. My stomach clenched when I saw it. The master key. Except this wasn't one key. It was a whole ring of them. House keys. Mail keys. Garage keys. About 20 of them, all mismatched. And Harris held it like he was carrying a live bomb. Found this in her car, he said, in the center console. The entire neighborhood let out a collective gasp. Karen lunged forward. That's private property, you caw. I held up a hand. Harris, we're exactly in the car. The door was open, he said, and these were on the seat when we approached. Karen paled. Those aren't, you can't prove. Karen, I said softly, why do you have keys to other people's homes? Her breath hitched. I do, those are just duplicates, emergency copies. For 20 different houses, I asked. She said nothing. And did those homeowners give you permission to hold their house keys? HOA presidents need backups, she snapped. No, they don't, I replied. Not in this county, not anywhere in this state. She stepped back. Then another step. Then another, until the backs of her heels hit the curb. Karen, I said gently, you need to sit down. I'm not a criminal, she whispered. I'm just trying to keep things in order. Her voice trembled like she was breaking in slow motion. I can fix everything, she whispered, if everyone would just listen. I knelt slightly to meet her eyes. You tried to control what you couldn't. And when nobody listened, you pushed harder. Her eyes glistened. For the first time, she looked human. Fragile. Lost. But then, just as she opened her mouth to speak, a scream tore across the street. I spun toward the sound instantly. A man came running from the corner house, waving something in his hand. "Sheriff, you have to see this right now." Corinne's eyes widened with terror. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't over. It was about to get worse. A lot worse. The man sprinting toward us was Mr. Carpenter, retired electrician, loud voice, louder opinions. If he was running, it meant something was serious. He held a thick envelope in one hand and a phone in the other. "Sheriff," he yelled again, "you need to see this. This ain't normal HOA business." Corinne's face drained of color. She staggered backward until she hit the hood of my truck. Her eyes darted left and right like she was searching for an escape route only she could see. Carpenter reached me, panting hard, sweat dripping down his forehead. He shoved the envelope into my hands. "This came yesterday," he said. "Didn't open it, thought it was just another one of her stupid violation notices." "The HOA sends those," I said. He pointed straight at Corinne. "Not when the envelope looks like that." I turned it over and immediately understood. No HOA letterhead. No return address. Just a red stamp across the back that read, "Mandatory action, non-negotiable." My jaw tightened. I tore it open. Inside were printed photos. Not of lawns. Not of trash cans. Not of holiday decorations violating HOA rules. But of people, neighbors, sleeping, entering their homes, leaving for work, taking out the trash, kids playing in driveways, zoomed in, some taken from bushes, some from windows. Every hair on my neck stood up. These weren't inspections. They were surveillance. Stalking. I flipped through photo after photo, 20, maybe 30, taken at different hours, different days. All from angles no HOA president should ever be near. I looked up sharply. "Corinne," I said, "where did these come from?" She froze like I had slapped her with electricity. "I was documenting violations," she stammered. "These are not violations," I said. "These are private lives." She hugged her clipboard to her chest like a shield. "A good HOA president has to know everything. That's how you maintain order." A murmur exploded through the neighborhood. Someone whispered, "She's insane." Someone else whispered, "Call a lawyer." A mother grabbed her child and stepped back. But before I could ask another question, Carpenter thrust his phone into my hand. "You also need to watch this," he said. The screen was already open to a security camera clip. I hit play. The footage was taken just 2 nights earlier at 3:14 a.m. The camera, mounted on Carpenter's garage, showed Corinne creeping onto his property in the darkness. Crouched, sneaking, wearing black gloves, holding a flashlight angled downward to avoid detection. She approached his porch, stopped, and took pictures of his doorframe, windows, and mailbox like an investigator gathering evidence for a crime scene. Carpenter jabbed his finger toward the screen. "And that," he said loudly, "was 3 hours after she knocked on my door pretending to check noise levels. I was literally asleep." Corinne covered her face with both hands. "Oh no," she whispered, "you weren't supposed to." I cut her off. "Corinne," I said, "you were surveilling residents at night." "No," she blurted. Then corrected herself. "Yes, but only because people were breaking rules, and someone has to keep this community from falling apart. By spying on families, by creeping into properties at 3 in the morning." She didn't answer. Her breath grew shaky. Her hands trembled violently. Her eyes were wide, but they weren't angry anymore. They were scared, terrified. Daniels approached me. "Sheriff," he whispered, "I also got a report from Mr. Davenport. His shed lock was tampered with last week." "And let me guess," I said, "he thought it was kids." Daniels nodded. "It wasn't," I said, "it was her." Corinne's knees gave out. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the bumper. "I was trying to help," she whispered. "But no one appreciated me. No one understood what it's like to keep everything perfect. It's like holding the whole world together with tape." Her voice trembled. "If I didn't make people follow the rules, everything would collapse." I stepped closer. "Corinne, what rules?" She blinked at me, confused. "The HOA rules," she said. "But," I asked gently, "did you write those rules for the community or for yourself?" Her lips parted. No sound came out. Her eyes darted wildly around the street, like she was hearing echoes only she could hear. Finally, with a broken whisper, she said, "I just wanted them to respect me." A silence settled heavy across the entire neighborhood. For one moment, nobody spoke. Not even a whisper. And then, as if fate waited for the perfect moment, a second cruiser pulled up. Deputy Lopez stepped out, holding a small black device in her hand. "Sheriff," she said, "you're gonna want to see this too." She clicked a button. A red light blinked. A recording began to play. Corinne's voice. Cold, sharp, threatening. "If the sheriff interferes, we deal with him next." The neighborhood gasped. All eyes turned to Corinne. She froze. Her breath stopped. Her face turned white as chalk. And I realized in that moment, the final line had been crossed. There was no turning back now. The recording kept playing, echoing down the neighborhood street. "If the sheriff interferes, we deal with him next." My own voice had never felt further away from me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised anymore. I was disappointed. Corinne, HOA Corinne, my community headache, my daily comedy show, my uninvited morning alarm, was now officially dangerous. The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Corinne didn't move. She stared at the ground, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths, her clipboard dangling from her hand. Deputy Lopez stepped toward me. "There's more," she whispered, scrolling through the device. She recorded multiple notes. She logged residents, planned operations, and she hesitated. "She named you in most of them." The neighbors grew restless, whispering, stepping backward, gathering their kids. A few recording from a distance lowered their cameras, realizing this wasn't entertainment anymore. It was heartbreaking. Corinne finally spoke, voice shaking like her entire body was cracking from the inside. "I didn't mean any of it," she whispered. "It was just venting, just words I wasn't actually." I raised one hand gently. Her voice died instantly. "Corinne," I said quietly, "you were watching people, taking photos of their kids, creeping around at night, entering homes, stealing keys." I paused. "And now we have a recording of you plotting to deal with me." She shook her head violently. No, I didn't mean I'd hurt you. I just meant I'd file a complaint, or I don't know. I just didn't want you stopping me." I took a slow breath. "Stopping you from what?" Her eyes glistened with tears she fought desperately to hide. "From losing control," she whispered. Every neighbor froze. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Control of what?" She looked up at me with eyes that finally showed the truth. "Of my life," she said. "Everything else slipped away. My marriage, my job, my kids don't talk to me. But the HOA still listened. They had to." The clipboard hit the ground with a sharp crack. "I needed at least one place where I mattered," she whispered. "One place where I wasn't invisible." The entire neighborhood went silent. Not out of pity, not out of forgiveness, but out of the heavy, aching realization that Karen wasn't a monster. She was someone who didn't know how to stop falling apart. I approached slowly, calmly, extending a hand, not to comfort her but to steady the moment. "Karen," I said, "you mattered long before the HOA, but what you've done, it crossed lines we can't uncross." She closed her eyes. Tears slipped out. "I thought rules made people safer," she whispered. "They do," I said, "but only when they protect, not control." She nodded weakly. "Do I have to go with you?" she asked, voice tiny. Her question twisted something inside me. She already knew the answer. "Yes," I said softly, "you do." Her legs buckled again. Before she fell, Daniels and Lopez gently held her arms, guiding her toward the cruiser. No pushing, no force, just firmness. The neighbors watched quietly, some with anger, some with relief, some with sadness. As she reached the back of the cruiser, she turned to look at me one last time. "You were supposed to help me run this place," she whispered. "Instead, you ruined everything." I shook my head. "I didn't ruin anything, Karen. I stopped it before someone got hurt." She looked like she wanted to argue. But she didn't. Lopez opened the door. Karen stepped inside. The door shut with a heavy thunk. And just like that, the HOA president who terrorized the neighborhood for months was no longer standing at the top of the hill. She was finally just Karen, a tired woman who needed help more than authority. The street stayed quiet long after the cruiser rolled away. Neighbors approached me one by one, some thanking me, some shocked, some joking nervously about changing their doorbell chimes. But the Millers were the last. The husband, Staff Sergeant Miller, shook my hand firmly. "You saved us," he said. His wife, holding their now-sleeping baby, gave me a grateful, exhausted smile. "Thank you for listening," she whispered. I nodded. "That's my job," I said softly, HOA drama included. They laughed, a tired but real laugh, and headed back inside. The sun dipped behind the houses, long shadows stretching across the street. As I climbed back into my truck, Daniels walked over, smirking. "Think the HOA's gonna need a new president?" he joked. I sighed, leaning back in my seat. "Oh, absolutely," I said. "And next time someone volunteers, I'm running the background check myself." He laughed. "What about you?" he asked. "You gonna run for president?" I stared straight ahead. "Nope," I said. "I've survived firefights, fugitives, and bar brawls, but nothing is more dangerous than HOA politics." Daniels burst out laughing as he walked back to his cruiser. I started the engine, took one last look at the peaceful neighborhood, and whispered to myself, "At least now, everyone can sleep with their doors locked, and their keys in their own pockets." Then I drove off, ready for my next call. Hoping it wouldn't involve a mailbox, a doorbell, or another master key. But knowing my town, it probably would. You've heard this confession, now wait until you hear the next one. The truth that shatters everything you thought you knew.